All right, B'siyata D'Shmaya, I'm going to do something that we've never done before, and I'm very excited about this, and that is talk about Megillah Esther. Let's talk about the idea of Megillah Esther and the messages specifically that we can learn from Megillah Esther. Because the truth is, if a person comes into Purim prepared, if he comes in with the right mindset, what he can gain from the Megillah is unbelievable. It could change your entire day of Purim if you understand what goes on in the Megillah. It is brought down that there is no other part of Torah that there is more Targum and Medrash on other than Megillah Esther. Megillah Esther has more Targum and more Medrash than any other chelik of the Torah. Now, of course, the Megillah's main purpose is really to encourage Yidden around the world to enjoy, to celebrate, to fulfill the mitzvahs of Purim. That might be the goal of the text, but that's not the theme of the text. In fact, just Agav, Megillah Esther took place over a 9-year span after Chorban Bayis Rishon. That's about over 2,500 years ago, just to put it into perspective. Now, Megillah Esther is a classic work that teaches us, if you learn the lessons, how the guiding hand of the Ribbono Shel Olam, even in the seemingly natural events, through the intricate details that we're going to try and analyze in a very small way. We're not going to get through the whole Megillah. Don't think for 1 minute we're even going to get through Perek Aleph. We're probably just going to do a few psukim here. But I just want to open up your minds to realize what Megillah Esther can be. It's on the messages and the lessons that we can learn are unreal. Okay? So when you go through the details of the Megillah and you see what looks like coincidence, oh, look at that, that's amazing. And you realize, no. That's the Yad Hashem. That is the hand of Hashem happening that eventually accomplishes the ultimate salvation, the Yeshua that Klal Yisrael got towards the end of the Megillah, all came about because of the events that look natural, but actually were very far from natural. Now we all know, that the name of Hashem was omitted from the Megillah. There is no name of Hashem. You will not find the name of Hashem once in Megillah Esther. So the reason for that on a technical level, the Ibn Ezra brings on Esther Perek Ches, he says that they were worried that when it would be copied by the Persians into their own chronicles, they might actually substitute Hashem's name with the name of their own gods, small g. Therefore, that's why the Ibn Ezra said that they omitted the name of Hashem. However, even though the actual name of Hashem doesn't physically appear over there, some say the word Hamelach, which is why some Megillahs have Hamelach in big at the front and the beginning of every single column, because that Hamelach is referring to the big Melech, the big king of Adam Melech Malchem Lachim. Even though, of course, when you read the translation, it's talking about Melech Achashverosh. But Al Kaponim, even though there's not Hashem's name there probably is no book in Tanakh where Hashem is more present if you are looking. And by the way, it's a message for our own lives, just start before we even get into the text, that if you're not looking, you won't see Hashem. But if you're looking and you're analyzing, you will see Hashem. Now, if you look at the Megillah or read the Megillah or listen to the Megillah, if you don't understand the messages or what's beneath the surface, you won't really see Hashem. And that's unfortunately how many people go through life. They don't see Hashem in their lives. Well, they're running a successful business. It's because of me. I'm a good businessman. I have a good PR team. Or they're good this, that, the other. They're good children, good marriage, good health situation, whatever. It's because of me. I exercise. They don't see Hashem in their own lives. The Megillah teaches us that even though we don't physically see Hashem in our own lives, Hashem is there. And He's present in every decision. He's present in every situation, even the common ones. However, there's no time in history where Klal Yisrael reached this level of awareness of Shavisa Hashem Lenegdi Tomid. As the Megillah clearly says, that at the end of the day, they reach that pinnacle, that time, that climax of the simcha, of recognizing that everything's from Hashem. That is an incredible thing. Now, the B'dichava, the Kedushas Levi, explains that from the Megillah, if you learn it properly, then you will see how to perceive the Ribbono Shel Olam in a world that is seemingly devoid of the revelation and the miracles of Hashem, even though there's so much over here. And we're going to have to try to go through some texts. I want to specifically point out maybe two things to begin with. And like I said, we're not really going to get too far today and at all, because we've only got a few days over here to deal with this. But it's enough. Even if I've just done today, it will be enough. Just to open up a little bit of the Megillah. So, by the way, there's a halacha in Shulchan Aruch that tells us, and this is a Mishnah in Perek Gimel in Masechtas Megillah, that when it comes to the mitzvah of hearing Megillah, the halacha is you have to hear every single word. And as we all know, we all grow up, you have to hear every word of the Megillah. There's almost no other time, except for Parsha Zohar maybe, that everyone's so makbid to hear every single word of the Megillah, right? So much so that the Mishnah Berurah says, you miss one word, you're not yaitza. You have to hear the whole thing all over again, right? That's why by Haman, they re-go over sometimes the word before, the word after, because maybe you missed one word. Says the Mishnah Berurah, the Chofetz Chaim, what if that word wasn't so relevant to the story? Doesn't make a difference. Why? What's the pshat? Because in Megillah Esther specifically, of course every area of Torah, but specifically in Megillah Esther, as we're going to try to explain some of the words, every single word has a major nafkamina and can make a difference to the whole story. Okay, so that is a simple idea. Let's begin. I'm just going to read the first pasuk, and then we'll try to open up some of the beneath the surface ideas of what's going on. Vayihi b'mei Achashverosh hu Achashverosh hamoilech mehoidu va'ad kush sheva ve'esrim u'mea medina. Okay, so this took place in the days of Achashverosh. Achashverosh, which is interesting, why is it repeating who Achashverosh? That was Achashverosh, who reigned over 127 provinces from Hoidu va'ad Kush. Now, there's a few lessons that I'd like to use from this. First, before we even get into the actual words, if you look at the few psukim, or even the first perek in the beginning, you will see there are so many irrelevant details. There are so many details that are like, why are we being told this? Why do we need to know about every detail about Achashverosh's political influence over the world, over the provinces? Why do we know exactly? We need to know there was 127 provinces and exactly where they were geographically as well. It's so important for us to know these details. Now you could say, okay, you want to set the stage to the story, so you want to know some background, introduction into the story. But there are so many details of what's going on. It talks about the Suda, it talks about all sorts of things going on. Like, why do we need to know this? At the end of the day, let's get to the crunch of the story. The ikar of the story is what happened with Haman, what happened with Esther, what happened with Mordechai. There's so much going on. What's going on? So, the Lubavitcher Rebbe once said a beautiful sikha, right? And it's brought down in the sikha on Purim, that he said, similar to this idea, that he said that sometimes a person can look at his own life and he can say, like, have you ever wondered most of your life is actually a waste of time? In other words, you know, as pleasurable as eating, sleeping, and even relaxing is, at the end of the day, they're not very meaningful experiences in your life, right? And yet, it's these activities that pretty much consume most of your time. If you count the hours of your life that you're actually alive and awake, you'll see that most of it is spent with eating, drinking, and sleeping, of course. So therefore, they're seemingly like not really relevant activities. So the Lubavitcher Rebbe explained one time that we have to understand that life is very sophisticated, too sophisticated for it to just come about by chance. And to address this very issue, the confusion and pain that people have in their lives, the Megillah begins with an idea of seemingly irrelevant details about the internal affairs of Achashverosh's kingdom and his government. So the Lubavitcher Rebbe, what's the message? The message is that in the Megillah, in the story of life, there are a lot of things that will inevitably seem a little bit pointless, but that doesn't mean they're actually pointless. It doesn't mean that they have no purpose. Everything has a purpose. Everything can be used for a purpose. And therefore, it's letting you know that just as the Megillah would be incomplete without these psukim, so too your life would be incomplete without, would there be no meaning if you'd had the seemingly meaningless activities that go on. So that is the first message that the Megillah brings us over here. The Medrash goes backwards and forwards to understand why does it repeat, hu Achashverosh. Like, what's the reason specifically why it repeats that over there? So the reason is, and that the Vilna Gaon brings this one, and Rebrevda brings this in his beautiful sefer on the Megillah Esther, as a Hebrew and an English one as well. So he says, and this again quoting the Vilna Gaon and other Midrashim, when it says hu Achashverosh, again, it just said Vayihi b'mei Achashverosh, and then hu Achashverosh. This is the same Achashverosh. What does that mean? Zog Rebrevda b'shem Chazal. It's the same Rasha from beginning to end, meaning this was Achashverosh, the Rasha, from the beginning of the Megillah all the way, right? At the beginning of the Megillah, there were no miracles at that stage. And he was the same Achashverosh, the same Rasha at the very end, after all the miracles happened. Whereas on the other hand, Klal Yisrael, the Yidden, they took the entire story to heart. and they reached new levels of Kabbalah Satorah. Kimu v'kibla Yehudim, the Gemara tells us, right? That we were Makabal Torah. Tosfos and Shabbos tells us, right, that we were Makabal the Torah again, be'ava, be'simcha on Purim. Why? Because of the story. Because they recognized Hashem in their lives. They recognized Hashem in the story of Purim. And therefore, they fixed themselves based on what they saw, and they did something about it. And it fixed themselves and obviously future generations, and that's why there's a mitzvah. Which is why the Megillah is telling us, Achashverosh, that he's the same Rasha from beginning to end. Now, by the way, just to note, there's another couple of lessons I want to do, and then we'll take questions. But if you go to the Megillah, you will see situations, circumstances that would crush most people. The average person would literally break down. But when you read the story, the chizuk that you can get, right? The Baditcha of the Kedushas Levi said the chizuk you get from Megillah can, by the way, last a whole year till next year Megillah. It could give you chizuk the entire year. Again, if you understand it and if you look at the underlying messages of the Megillah, then you get this. But if you look at what happened to them, what they went through, and again, Midrashim, you have to learn to understand this properly. Mordechai and Esther maintained complete self-control, complete composure when they faced these unbelievable challenges that would have broken their faith of a regular person, but no, because they realized that their life is governed by Hashem and by Torah, and they have to do what's right, not what's easy, and therefore that was Lemaisa coming from a desire to do the Ratzon Hashem, to do that. Whereas if you look at the Rishonim, the lesson that the Megillah teaches us is how low a person can fall. How low a person can fall and how despicable his character traits can actually be. When you look at Haman and Achashverosh, these were literal, you could see it like highlighted in the Megillah, right? The greed, the lust, the jealousy, the drunkenness, the anger, the rage, the depression, the revenge. So much going on. Why? Chazal are teaching us. That's how far a person can go. That's how low a person can actually stoop. Two lessons, Rabbi Salam, will end over here. And then we'll take the question. The Gemara Megillah. The Gemara says in Megillah, again, based on this one pasuk. We've only done one pasuk, and we haven't even explained most of it. But the pasuk says, again, so there's a Gemara Megillah Daf Yud Aleph, where the Gemara brings over here, who made him a king? Is he actually from, king offspring? Was he from a king family? Was he from royal blood? So there's a machlokes about it. Some actually hold yes, many hold no. That's what most people go with. But Al Kaponim, the Gemara brings B'Shem Rav, Sha'achashverosh molach ma'atzma. He made himself into a king. Some people learn that the Shvach, some people learn that L'gnai. Some learn that against all Chazal, the Gemaras and the Rishonim, that he paid a lot of money to become the king. Some learn that Lemaisa, he was so desperate to become the king that not only did he pay money, he drove people crazy, and he drove everyone crazy, and he pushed and pushed and pushed till he became what he became, which was the king of most of the world, which is an incredible idea. So the Sfarim HaKadoshim bring, the Sifrei Musa tell us, like Rabbi Avodas Hashem, there's a message. Right? We know Chazal tell us, who's a chacham? Learn from everyone. Right? There's even rayas as well, the Pasuk in Tehillim Kuf Yotes, that you can even learn from Mishaim as well. Achashverosh was a Rasha. Why are we learning from him? Pasuk says you can. You can learn from Mishaim. What's the message that we're learning? That when a person wants to get somewhere, you need to work hard. You need to push, and you will get there. There's no question. We see it from Donald Trump over here, President of America. That's poshet. But you saw from Achashverosh from the story. He wanted to become the king. He paid money and he pushed, which means in Yiddishkeit, in Ruchnius, if you want to get somewhere in life, you need to push. I spoke to someone last night having a very, very tough time in Ruchnius, in Yiddishkeit, whatever it was. And I said to him, listen, look at the successful people out there. These are people that push. These are people that go beyond what they need to do. That's the message of Achashverosh. He pushed and pushed and pushed until he became something that he wasn't even right to become. He wasn't right to become a king. Who are you? But he did. You know why? Because he pushed. That means in our own lives, when things are going tough, when we want to get somewhere, and we think to ourselves, it's not really right for me. That's not for me. I'm not going to get there. Learn from this, that if you push, you can actually get there. And one last thing also that we can learn from here is the following. Also, Sheba ve'Esru Mea Medina, the other part of the pasuk, 127 provinces. There's a Gavaldiga Medrash in Esther Rabbah, in the Medrash, says like this: how many Medinas were there in the world? 252 Medinas yeshnam ba'olam. How much is that? 252, right? 252. Achashverosh ruled on half. What's half of 252? 126. So why does the Megillah say 127? And the Pasuk clearly says that. Sheva, Vesim, Umeya, Medina. That's 127. That's the Medrash's Kasha. Why does it say 127? Half. Half is 126. Zuk, listen to this Medrash. Ela Omer HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Because I'm not going to go through the whole meaning of the Medrash, how he explained that I'm going to give you one for the Beis HaMikdash, to build the Beis HaMikdash when you go up to Yerushalayim. Alfani Noisa L'Chaliyah, to service Achas Meshali, but Shahisu LeMedina Achas Becheshbon, Ad Shemalachat Kuv Zayin, Kuv Chav Zayin Medinas. That means what happened is that because of someone that came before him, he was Mekabel Schai, he got reward for one extra Medina that they did. Zuk the Sfarim HaKadosh in the Sifrei Musa. You can see from here how medactic the Rabboni Shalom is to give reward for the smallest thing that you do. Because of the smallest thing that Achashverosh did, or those that came before him, he was able to have another whole Medina. That's huge. Which means that when a person does something, even if it's very small, even if it's seemingly not so relevant and not significant, at the end of the day, it can have massive, massive reward and massive results. So Rabbi said, we've only done Pasuk Aleph, as I told you. We're not going to get very far. We're going to do a few Psukim. But when you read a Pasuk of the Megillah and you see what's going on, tomorrow, B'nai Neder, I'm going to try to go more, we did a bit of an introduction today. Tomorrow I want to go into more the depth of some of the story and the history line of what went on, and to see the Hashgacha Pratis of what went on by Megillah Esther is absolutely wild. We'll take questions.